Following on from yesterday's training session with Lucy, in the cooler lunge on the lunge, concentrating on the canter, I've taken a step back today to concentrate on improving the connection in the trot. So what we found is while I got her going forward quite nicely, and we got some good canter work out of her on the lunge, she was working a little bit more hollow under saddle and was more difficult to get on the bit. And well, she did canter once under saddle. It was quite hurried, and it's not something that we're wanting to repeat. So we've just had to basically take a step back because she was not listening to the half pulse for steadying. Rather, she was trying to run through Linda's A. So it's always a balance when training the young horse. So we always want to concentrate on getting them to go forward, but not to the point where you then have trouble stopping them or they stop listening to the aid. Now, being that Lucy is quite a sensitive horse, I believe that's part of the problem. She got a little bit stressed out with the right canter, and then that carried through into the under saddle work. But as I said yesterday, she needs to learn to cope with adverse situations, not buck and run away from them, or under saddle just try and run away from them. So you'll see here now she's less attentive than she has been. I'm having trouble getting her to go over the trot poles at times. And she's again wanting to push through that right shoulder. Now, I've brought her back onto the trot poles because I find they help her to concentrate. They encourage her to lift her back and engage her hindquarters, which is something that's clearly lacking at the moment. So it's not a matter of just tightening the side reins to get her head down. That's not a solution. All that will do is jam her up. What we're looking at, what we want to happen is for her to engage her hindquarters, lift her back, lift the thoracic spleen, which then softens the top line muscles and gets her to drop her pole and lift and engage. And while she's not straight, she's also blocking as well. So if she's not straight, it's more difficult to get her to come on the bit. It's more difficult to get her to go over each pole. So I'm really having a few problems with her here right now. So you'll see me flexing her to the outside. It's because I just can't get her off that right shoulder and she's not listening to my outside rein. So I'm over flexing her to the outside to say, hey, listen. And she's running through my stepping aid. And this is also why I'm repeatedly making her come back to walk. Because making a transition, a downward transition, is an extension of the half halt, which she's not listening to. So this was definitely a more challenging session today. But again, sometimes you've got to change things up, move them forward, take a step back, and then move them forward again. If you stay in that area where you know they're going to do well, you're not going to make progress with the training. So I had to push her a little bit, and now I'm going to take a step back with her training. Now moving on to the easier side, she's still wanting to run a little bit, which is also why I put her back on the long reins today. So I have some control and she can't just run through my aid. So I'm just steadying her now and saying, hey, like we're not running over the poles and we're just not running in general. She's really just wanting to charge around. And that does carry through under saddle, which is what we saw yesterday in Linda's lesson under saddle, is she was just charging. And also when they're charging, they're not comfortable to ride either. They're not soft into the contact and lifting their back. They're actually quite rough to ride. So this is something that we just have to work through. And Lucy has to learn to come back and listen to me. She cannot spend her whole life running away from her problems or her perceived problems. She has to find a better way to deal with adverse situations. And this is not an adverse situation. This is just Lucy being ridiculous, basically. Now, this is an improvement. I'm now starting to get her into my outside rein. So she's straighter, means she's following the line that she's traveling on from pole to tail. And you can see there's a lot more swing through the body, and she's actually starting to go over each pole. And that was a much better downward transition without me having to really steady her and make her come back. So before she was not listening to my voice commands and was just charging through. So now I can start to actually ask for some transitions between the poles and get her making these transitions on command, not just because I'm steadying her because she's running through my aid. Just lost a little bit of connection there, but that's okay. So I need her listening and then making these transitions on command and then staying straight, which is what she's struggling to do still. And what I'm trying to do is make a transition between each pole, but our timing is not perfect yet. So making the downward transition is helping to engage the hindquarters, which then helps to lift the back in the thoracic spleen. It also gets her listening to me, so she's not just charging around. And then we can carry this through into her under saddle work. Now that she's finally started to listen to me, I'm going to give her a pat and a little break, the reward for good behavior, because it's taken that long for her to actually start to consistently listen to me, which is, she hasn't been this rushy or strong since the beginning of our training sessions together. So what I'm looking for is a consistent frame and consistent transitions, and transitions that are being made on my voice command rather than me having to apply a firm contact with long rein to make her stop. She's always willing to go or to trot again quite easily on voice commands. It's bringing her back that is the challenge. And then obviously maintaining that round, consistent connection. And while she didn't have it perfect on the other side, I've changed direction because I like to continue changing direction to keep things interesting, but also because sometimes when they're not getting something one way, it's quicker and easier. Just change direction, get it on the better side, and then go back to the more difficult side, which is what we're doing now. Now, this was the challenging side, but I have managed to develop a better connection on the good side, which should then theoretically carry through to the more difficult side. So as you can see, she's still on that right shoulder. So we did have to have a little bit of a discussion about Lucy staying out on the circle. And I do mean a discussion. So while the poles don't help with the straightness, as I said, they do help with the engagement, and it actually makes it quite clear if she's not traveling evenly on the circle. It's very, very obvious. Poles haven't moved, the horse isn't going over the center of the pole now. So obviously the horse is trying to move on a smaller circle in this direction. Now, because I can't get Lucy to stay out on the circle, I'm going to try something different, which is just doing smaller circles over each pole individually to create that inside flexion and bend. So what happens is if you just pull back on the inside rein, you're going to make the circle smaller. That's the reality. You're not getting them off the inside shoulder. You're not stepping them into the outside rein. So moving them from off the inside shoulder into the outside rein has to come from the outside rein. However, because she's not responding to my outside rein steadying enough, she just flexes to the outside and I can't get her off that inside shoulder. Because obviously I'm not sitting on her, I don't have an inside leg. And this is the problem that Linda had under saddle with her. So my next idea is to put her on a smaller circle where I have got the control to create the bend on the long rein. Then I'm going to do individual circles over each pole. Now, obviously, the smaller the circle, the higher the degree of difficulty. However, this mare is quite a strong mare. So she's more than capable of doing a 10-meter circle on the long rein to develop that connection, that roundness, that engagement, and the straightness. And now, as you can see, I'm still having trouble keeping her out on the circle. So I can get her correct flexion and bend on the smaller circle, but then she wants to stay on that inside shoulder when I want to take her to the next pole. So obviously just doing a 10-meter circle continuously over the single pole isn't adding a vast amount of value. So what I'm doing is doing a 10-meter circle and then trying to move her to the next pole to get her to step forward and around, with the goal then of taking her back out to the 20-meter circle. Now that's a much better connection in the trot there. And you'll actually see now she's actually wanting to come back to walk rather than just charging around as well. So at the beginning of the session, she was just wanting to charge through and keep going forward. Now she's coming back quite nicely and actually offering me that comeback. So that's progress as well. Now for another quick directional change, just so we can practice this exercise on the good side before we finish, which is going to be super easy. However, I like to do things, try and mirror what we're doing in each direction as closely as possible. So it also helps me to bring that right shoulder around, because while she wants to be on the right shoulder going to the right, so that means she's leaning in on the right shoulder going to the right, that also means she's falling out of the right shoulder when she goes to the left. So I again still need to get her listening to that outside rein, but for a different reason. So putting her on the smaller circle will help me to get her to bring that shoulder around. It's what we discovered when Linda was riding her. She struggled to bring her around, to ride her on the actual 20-meter circle over the poles to begin with, which you'll see in the written lesson. And then because I've spaced these poles wider apart today, I found it a little bit more difficult to steer her as well. So I've actually increased the degree of difficulty of the exercise. Obviously, the shorter the long range, the closer I am to her, the more control I have over her. However, I want to have more control on a longer range because she's starting to steer and stay balanced herself and work in self-carriage. Well, that's it for our training session with Lucy today. There will be a video of the written session following. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to our channel for lunch. And if you have any questions, drop us a comment. Thank you for watching.